Declan, I've been listening to podcasts recently, and they no longer do an introduction. So I'm thinking of just shelving the introduction completely. What do you reckon?
Yeah, you are pretty bad at them, so I would probably agree with that. You should do that. Yeah.
Those I don't know, Gary, if you watch the Matty Johns one, that's a pretty good one. But actually, your favourite person, Madge was on there last night, and they just start the show where they're just in the middle of a conversation.
Yeah, Steve and I did one a few weeks ago where I just ended the show because he was just rabbiting on about Luke Brooks. So I just faded him out, and that was the end of the show.
Gary, it's Saturday, the trip to Bathurst, the bus to Bathurst. Can you please give us details of the West Tigers podcast bus leaving?
Yeah, it's going to Bathurst for the game. No, it's leaving at 9:45 from Concord Oval on Loftus Street there. So if everyone shows up before then, jumps on the bus, Joel will drive us all out to Bathurst. There's a stop at Glenbrook on the way out there at 10:45 to pick up some stragglers who can't be bothered driving in the Concord to get on the bus. And then we're all heading to Bathurst for what should be, hopefully, a good day of football, but
Gary,
hopefully better than last weekend.
You were a school teacher once, weren't you?
Yeah.
Did you ever write permission notes for excursions? Because tell you what, that was a bit rough.
I think there's adults coming, so I don't think they need a permission note.
Have you seen the ambush crew?
Yeah, well, yeah. Kelly needs a permission note, I think.
Weather looks okay, so hopefully, boys, you have a good day. Last year it would have been, I guess, a win and a loss, Declan, because the weather was absolutely horrendous, but the Tigers got the win. I suppose you'd take that this Saturday, even though you're not on the bus. You'd take that, Gary, wouldn't you, given you are on the bus?
Yeah, I'll take a win under any circumstances. It can hail, it can snow, it can do all sorts of weather in one day.
I think there'll be much cover at Carrington Park, Bathurst.
Yeah, I'll take a little. I don't know. Yeah, I'll get wet. I don't care as long as we get the win.
Boys, it's midweek podcast time. We'll obviously preview the Panthers game, but there's a couple of topics that I've rusted up for this weekend. But Steve, before we go, we didn't have you on Sunday. Did you have a word for that performance out at Campbelltown, 24-12 loss?
Simple word, mate. Poor. Very poor performance. Didn't show up. Didn't look to have any confidence. I just luck has a bit to do with it sometimes, and I suppose if we'd had the injuries and suspensions in these next two rounds, in games that we're going to battle to win anyway, and we had our full strength team or the team we're trotting out this weekend, the last two weekends, we probably would have be 4 points ahead on the ladder, I reckon, but that wasn't the case, and it was just a return to the bad old days for the Tigers. No structure, no line speed, too many errors, same old errors we've seen year after year. It was pretty disappointing. Hopefully the new Tigers come back this weekend.
I actually thought Steve's one word was going to be corporate box because he abandoned all us working class people and escaped the seats and headed to a corporate box watch a game on Sunday.
I was going to say, Steve, we left you alone Sunday night. We didn't mention you in the podcast, but you're very lucky to get one of those corporate boxes. I thought there were about 3 out at Leichhardt and Campbelltown listening to Richo. I didn't think there were any corporate boxes.
Look, it was a unique experience, but it's no different to any other seat. When we dropped the ball,
it's no different to sitting on the hill, is it?
No, it's not. But, as we dropped the ball, I got angry. I choked on my prawns. I sprayed my champagne all over the place. Just a normal weekend of the footy for me. It was awesome.
Steve, you were swanning around after the 2-1 start because you did say this team is capable of making the top 8, and I gave you a bit of a rap. Have your expectations changed based on what you saw the last 2 weeks or not?
Because Eddie's has.
A loaded question, but it's yours to answer, Steve.
Look, no, they haven't changed because I do believe, as I've said, right, they are capable of making the 8, and they've shown that. They've shown they're capable of playing good football. Now, what I also put onto that, if you remember, was we needed to have a lot of luck. We needed to keep our top team on the paddock, and we had to have a few of these new guys jump out of the box. Now, we've had that, in a sense, with Lockie Galvin. I don't think anyone saw that coming to the extent that it has. But we've been a little bit unlucky, losing him for 2 weeks. That has made such a difference, which is a real worry. that one player makes such a difference. And then losing Fainu off the bench was a big loss. Samuel Fainu, I mean. Losing Bateman, his experience hasn't been playing that well, but that hasn't been good for us. And Appy's been playing injured. So you get that bit of bad luck, and that's enough to turn us right around, unfortunately. This is a big test this week, Eddie, because we've gone back to the bad old days, as I just said, but this better team, this team we've got a lot of hope in, is back on the paddock. So we want to see what we saw against Parramatta this weekend.
Declan, I'm going to rip straight into buy, sell, hold, and that's off the back of good segue. I'll fire this question to you. West Tigers are the worst favourites of all time in professional sports. Buy or sell?
I'm going to... maybe not professional sport. I'll just buy it because it just seems to be the trend, doesn't it? We have 2 or 3 good wins against teams that we're not really expected to do much against, and then there's some home game, whether it be at Leichhardt or Campbelltown, something like that, and we're favourites. Everyone's feeling pretty good before. We get a really good crowd. It's like either members appreciation round or there's something else as well where everyone's kind of excited. It's a really good atmosphere, and then we just don't start well, and we're never really in the contest. It's happened. I could probably think of 4 or 5 examples off the top of my head. I just don't understand it. Phil Gould mentioned it on his I think it was either his podcast, 100% Footy, that the bottom 4 teams, they don't really do well when they're the favourites, and I think that's definitely the case with us, unfortunately.
I was going to say that's a good point, Gary. It's there's got to be some psychology in it because we're so used to, and this week will be a lot easier because there's no pressure. No one's expecting us to beat Penrith. You just turn up and rip in and have a go. But last week, you think, you put yourself in the players' shoes. You get a sellout crowd at home. You're the favourites. There's expectation there. They don't deliver. I think they feel that extra pressure.
But they must. It goes all the way back. Even in 2012, we're favourites to win the comp. And we didn't even make the finals. So it is something that is a history at our club that we don't handle that sort of pressure well. And I think it kind of comes back to, for a long time, our club has had a reputation of having a soft underbelly. Robbie Farrow arced up at it when it was said to him by Matty Johns, I think, many, many years ago. But I think it's true. Like, whenever there's a little bit of pressure on, whenever there's a little bit of expectation on, we tend to go to water. And the players must feel it because it happens too often for it to be a coincidence.
I reckon it's also just classically symptomatic of a rebuild, right? Like, we are a poor team, or have been a poor team, that is slowly building its roster. But this is this competition is so fierce and so difficult and so intense that you get an injury, you get a couple of injuries, you get a suspension, and because we're in this rebuild situation, we can't rebuild fast enough. We don't have the depth to cover it at this point in time. Now, maybe if we stick to this strategy of youth, we will. But at the moment, something goes wrong and we cannot handle it.
Well, and the thing is, I think most of us here were a bit surprised when we were favourites last weekend. I thought St. George should have been favourites going into that game realistically when you have a look at the lack of depth.
Because of their coach, Gary?
No, definitely not because of their coach. Who is a good coach, but there's other reasons why I don't want him. But because of our lack of depth, I think is the main reason. Once we lose a couple of players, we're really scraping the bottle of what I would consider NRL standard players. I think we're below that. Once we get 1 or 2 injuries in a position across the park, we're bringing up guys who I don't think should be really regulars in the NRL, and we're doing that too often. And for me, that's why we shouldn't have been favourites last weekend. And that's why, if we're being realistic, no one was really surprised by that result last weekend.
Declan, I was going to say, I sort of agreed with Gary. There was a soft underbelly there for years when we had good teams. But I think it's more now. I don't know. It used to be, I used to feel 7-10 years ago that there were 5 or 6 bad teams every year. But now, you even watch teams like the Bulldogs and Dragons and Dolphins and guys. Like, it's hard to out-effort a team every week is my point. And we seem to have to out-effort a team, and they have to be a little bit below their best, and we have to be maybe, 90% of our best to win. Is that fair, or is that making excuses?
I think that's fair. I think this year, as opposed to years before, I think we have played some pretty good footy in the games we've won, and like certain parts of the Raiders game as well. So I don't think the Sharks and the Eels played particularly bad. Like, I think the Eels, like, they played really badly in our 20, but in terms of the other parts of the field, I thought they had a good game, but we still managed to win. But I think I talked about in the pod, I just think that all the kind of small successes that win a footy game, we didn't really display any of them against the Dragons. I mean, we conceded early in the first 5 minutes, and then we conceded late in the first half. And so that's a 12-point turnaround right there. And the game, it's pretty much already over because we're missing Lachlan Galvin. Appy looked like he was carrying injury. So we never really had the points to come back from that. So if we just shut down those two tries with like a little bit of more concentration and focus, then it could have been a completely different game. And then we also gave away like lots of, pressure relieving penalties, 6 again. So we missed tackles, which was the polar opposite of how we won against the Eels, because we didn't really have much attacking ball against the Eels, but we won on the back of our defence. But it was we just gave ourselves no chance to do that against the Dragons.
I reckon you just said something there, Declan, that goes to Eddie's point, right? You said if we just had more concentration and focus, and it just seems that for us to win a game, we have to be 100% focused, with 100% concentration and an outstanding effort, 80 minutes non-stop, because we don't score any of the easy tries. Like, we get a bloke like Lockie Galvin who looks like he can make a break and put Buller away for a 40-metre dash, and all of a sudden you got 6 points. An easy try, if you know what I mean. Like, it hasn't required 5 repeat sets on the opposition goal line to get the try, or defending your line for 6 sets to get the ball back to get upfield. We have to do that sort of work every single week, and you can't sustain that in the NRL. I don't reckon.
I think it's a good point, Steve, because I've watched fair amount of games this year, and you see a team like the Roosters who can play like duds for 50 minutes, but individual tries come out of nowhere and they end up scoring, 24, 26 points, which is, I don't think we're capable of our roster at the moment where it is. I'll stick with you for this one, Steve, because you weren't on Sunday. Buy, sell or hold. We should stop playing games at Campbelltown because we've lost our last 9 there. Buy or sell?
There's a grenade for you.
Yeah, I know, it's a loaded.
Plenty of grenades tonight. Don't worry. That's why I hosting the show, Gary. I get to make the questions.
Look, I have to say, I have never enjoyed going to Campbelltown, and that's my honest opinion. Why? Yeah, because I don't think it has the atmosphere. Now, maybe subconsciously, it's because I'm so in love with Leichhardt, because that's where I grew up, right? Maybe that is the case. It's definitely not a West Balmain thing, because that's long gone in my head, that's for sure. But I've never enjoyed the atmosphere. And even this last weekend, it was a packed house, but I didn't hear that Tigers chant once.
That's because I kept on playing music every time.
Annoying. That was annoying. That was annoying. I know they've probably got young kids there and stuff and playing music, but I was sitting on the hill underneath one of the speakers, and by halftime, I'm like, I'm out of here, because it wasn't just stops in play. It was like every penalty, and like, I reckon the music played 25 times in the first half. Rant over.
No, I agree with you, mate. I agree 100%. So, look, Campbelltown's part of our future, obviously an important part. And so, yes, we have to play at Campbelltown. I don't know why we can't win there. We can't win at many places, to be fair. But it just doesn't seem to have the atmosphere. I'd be interested in what people think about that comment.
Yeah, we spoke about it Sunday night. I personally think we've just played so poorly there, and we don't give the opportunity for the crowd to get into the game. Maybe there's been games like that at Leichhardt, but I agree with Joel. Like, I've been to Leichhardt where it's been deathly silent, in those end of year games where we've had to win to get in the top 8. So I just think it's a matter of the boys trying to get on the scoreboard early and get the crowd into the game. Declan, buy or sell? Lachlan Galvin's contract needs to be extended and upgraded immediately.
Yeah, I'm going to buy that. I just think that, it's better to be safe than sorry for these situations. And although he has contracted for another 2 years after this one, I think that he's probably on like not that great money, and I think just to buy security for the long term, like, I think he's established that he's a first grade player for sure, and he might have his up and downs, but I think he's definitely someone that we should base the club around in the future. So I'll definitely be trying to extend him before any clubs can circle around him.
Just on that, Declan, you, I think, hinted during the week that there are a couple of other young guys who are potentially getting a bit restless.
Well, yeah, so I think the Harold Matthews players there, Antonio Large and Ashton Large, so they're only young guys. I think Ashton's, this is his first year, Harold Matts, and Antonio, this is his second. And yeah, there's some rumours speculating online that they've kind of both gotten like cold feet with the club because obviously this is more to do with Antonio Large, I think, because Lachlan Galvin's kind of cemented himself in that 6 jersey. And then we've also got Latu Fanu, who's in the first year of a 4-year deal. So there's some rumours that he's not happy and wants to leave, or that the family's pushing to like get him out of his contract. Because I think they both signed long-term deals. That it's been reported 4 years for each of them, so they have been locked down long term. But what do you do with a young player who like wants to leave for a better opportunity? And then I can understand. I think Joel even said, like, if you're a young half at the moment at the club with Jerome Luai coming next year, you can understand the hesitancy because you don't really see your immediate path to first grade. But I just think that it's just disappointing because this club has went on about this mantra of like junior development, and to lose, two of our best juniors from that Harold Matts team, I think that would be disappointing.
Good problem to have though, Gary. It's been a while since we've had a backlog of halves. I know these guys are particularly young, but it's not like you can just say, "Oh, we'll fast track you into the squad like Lachlan Galvin," because I'm not sure what goes on behind the scenes. They might have guaranteed him something, but for me, he's just earned that through how he trained in the preseason and how he looked, and then how he's performed.
And Antonio Large, he also was training with the NRL squad over the off-season as well. So he has been given those sort of opportunities. And if you look at how our club has recently been structuring those junior deals, I would say that in the next 18 months or so, 18 months to 2 years, he'll be moving into an NRL contract anyway, because that's how we've been structuring those deals. So I'd expect him to be on that sort of deal. I think the complication is probably that he's also in the Waratahs system and has been playing rugby and played schoolboy rugby as well. So for me, I would hazard a guess that's where the kind of pressure's coming from in regards to him moving on.
I don't think that it's union that we should be worried about, because right now, at the moment, the money in rugby union just is nowhere near where these guys could be earning, like straight out of high school, coming into a top 30 contract. Because yes, you look at guys like Jorgensen who chose rugby union over rugby league, but that's pretty much it. I can't think of anyone else. I reckon if he was to leave, or if they were to leave, it'd be to another NRL system. Because I think that not only the money, but also the access to the professional pathway. Like 18 years old, you're pretty much training with the top 30 guys already, and like the opportunities within Australia. Plus, the Wallabies right now are in a state of transition, a little bit like the West Tigers, kind of always rebuilding, always getting a new coach. So I'm not sure that would be the best position for them to go to. But yeah, it's just disappointing. And also Makasini, the centre for the Howard Mats, probably our best player in that team. He also hasn't re-signed yet as well. So I think it's just a little bit troubling. And yes, I might be jumping at shadows a bit here, but like we talk about all this junior development, but if they get pinched well before they're close to first grade, I think that's a big problem, because like although Penrith have lost a lot of players, they've done a really good job of controlling who they lose. Like obviously Fisher Harris is the big example of someone they didn't want to lose, but everyone besides him, they've managed to get them to first grade and they make a decision on them to go to another club. But when you're losing guys like 16, 17-year-olds to other systems, I think that's not a good way to continue the rebuild.
You can't really do any more than get them onto a 3 to 4 year contract, though, which is what we've done. And if they're agitating for release, that's not really the club's fault. They've got them onto those contracts, and if they're making the decision to really put up a fight to get out of that contract, then that's probably the bigger issue. And And I don't know what you do. You have to go out. You can't just sell now for your future. We're a side that hasn't made the top 8 in 12 years. Yes, we've got some talented halves coming through, but we can't afford to wait 3 years. So you have to go out. You have to strengthen those halves positions for now. And if these guys are good enough, you sign them to a contract, a 3 to 4 year contract. And then if they've signed that contract, then it's their responsibility to try and outs those guys that are in front of them. That's the situation that it is. And if I'm being really honest, I would like to hold them to that contract because they've signed that contract. And yes, we've signed other players after them, but it's professional sport. We can't sit here and wait 3 to 4 years until these guys mature into NRL players.
No, it's interesting if you look at the psychology behind it, right? I don't know, if I was a talent scout looking at these boys, Declan, who's the 5'8"? What's his name?
Antonio Large.
Antonio, yeah. So he's basically looked at Lockie Galvin ahead of him and said he wants to pull up stumps.
I think Steve, that, and Declan can answer in a minute, but that's sadly the way a lot of kids and their managers operate these days is, oh, you did that for him, you got to do that for me. Declan?
But do you want a bloke? Sorry, Declan. Do you want a bloke that the first time he gets a bit of pressure on him, like someone's ahead of him in the pecking order, he wants to take his bat and ball and go elsewhere? I reckon that's pretty poor.
Yeah, I probably just want to clarify. These are all like Twitter rumors, so if it's just not true, I'm really sorry to the Large. Yeah, I'm really sorry to the Large family. I did not mean to, cause any disrespect. But yeah, I just think, unfortunately, as you alluded to, Steve, that's just the way these things work now. I mean, if you look at the Finer brothers, they were the exact same. Like, they weren't getting a shot at Manly, so the manager just moved them over to us where they had first grade opportunities. So we have benefited from this system, but that's really annoying. And I would like to see, young players, have a crack, get into the first grade arena and try and displace these guys. Because it's not like, like Nathan Cleary is in the 6 jersey for us. Like Galvin is amazing and he's had a really strong start to his first grade career, but it's not exactly like he's the incumbent Australia 5'8". You know what I mean? So, he could just, I wouldn't say his path is blocked 100% that way. Like, if he trade really hard, he could.
Eddie's just about to sign him to a 15-year contract, though.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But yeah, I don't know. I would just rather get them to first grade, and then we decide when they're in first grade or on the cusp of first grade if they're good enough or not, as opposed to letting them go now and then 3 years from now it biting us on the ass like it did with Pappenhausen. So yeah.
Yeah, I get that. Who do you reckon? This is a bit of a Yachty's quiz question, right? Who do you reckon is the best young player in the last 5 years to hit first grade and hit it at 1,000 miles an hour? All right, who do you reckon?
Reece Walsh, maybe.
Yeah, Reece. Yeah, I wasn't thinking Reece Walsh, but Melbourne player played a bit for us.
Harry Grant.
Oh, Harry.
Yeah, Harry Grant. Right now, you know why? You know why he hit the ground so hard? Because he did his time in reserve grade. Like, he spent 2 or 3
a lot
seasons,
of time in reserve grade.
He spent 2 or 3 seasons in reserve grade, learning his craft, building his body, doing whatever he had to do. And then when he got his chance, he just hit it like a ballistic missile. And I don't know why these guys don't want to do that, but they don't.
Well, I think that's the problem because they don't want to do it for us. But if you look at Brandon Smith as well and Harry Grant, they both wanted to stay at the Storm, and they probably stayed longer than they could have because they wanted that jersey. And you look at guys like Joey Mann at the Roosters, he'd rather go to Japanese rugby than play for another team besides the Roosters. And then everyone from Penrith. So I think that I agree with you, Steve. I think that would be amazing if they did, but for some reason, I think I know it's because managers know that they know they can play us off because we are desperate to get better deals from other clubs. And I think that until we can solve that, until we can get players to want to stay for us and debut for us and win for us, I think this is going to continue to be a problem.
Steve, I like that word you used, transition, Declan, about the Wallabies the last 20 years. I could have used a few other words, but that was a nice word. Might be the last 20 years. Steve, Stefano, I mean, I'll ask you first, are you going to vote with your head or your heart here? Because my question's going to be, will Stefano be at the Tigers in 2025? Buy or sell?
I'm going to I'm going to sell it.
That's sad. That's sad because, I mean, and I'm a bit peeved off at this, Gary, because like what sort of club puts in a clause that if we don't make the top 8, you can leave? Like, that is just ridiculous.
You know the answer to that question. So it's our past administration. That's where we kind of were. They were the desperate decisions we were making, and it may have been what they needed to get Steph over the line last time, but we don't want to be in that situation. I'm not as down about this as a lot of people are at the moment. I still think he'll be here next year. For starters, I if he keeps playing at the form he's in, he makes that State of Origin squad.
You have to pay him big.
Yeah, but he's here next year if he makes that State of Origin squad. And I think the football he's playing at the moment, he's at least in with a good chance for that. I know that Madge didn't pick him in that train-on squad, but his form at the start this year has been a lot different to what it was the end of last year. I think
banking on that's risky, though. Like, that's...
But that's a situation we're in. That's the contract we've signed. I still think this comes down to me on how well Benji Marshall can sell his rebuild in the future of this club. I can only go on what all the players were saying. I know money and stuff comes into it as well, and I'm sure going to Penrith is an attraction. But I also don't know how true that rumour is. I think that was just a knee-jerk article to the news about Fisher Harris today going to the Warriors. I don't necessarily think there's a lot of truth to that. I'm sure he will be a target for them, but I don't know that it's that far down the track where they've got their replacement lined up. So I think things are getting a little ahead of themselves in that regard with this story. But for me, if we don't make the finals and he doesn't play the State of Origin games he needs to play this year, then for me it comes down to how well Benji Marshall sells the future of this club. And from the way he speaks in the media and the way players talk about him, I think he can do that. And I'll get upset about this when it looks like it's going to happen. At this point, it's just speculation. I'm not too concerned.
Yeah, and for all we know, the manager, or Stefano's manager, could have leaked this to a journal, like as soon as he found out about the James Fisher Harris story, to kind of do exactly what's happening now, to get us to talk about this story. So it could be, smokes and mirrors in that regard. But yeah, it's just a strange one because Stefano has come out in the media and said that he's not going to take up that option. Like, he was quoted in a media press conference saying that, but there's still been no movement on it. So he's saying one thing, but the actions of him and his manager are kind of saying other things. And if I put my optimist hat on, maybe Stefano, he is hell bent, he's being honest, but then the manager says let's just calm down, try to get you the best deal possible. If you go out and say that you're not going to take the option, that takes away our leverage. Or worst case scenario, he is genuinely looking at his options, and it's hard to blame him if you take off your West Tigers hat, because Penrith, that would be an attractive offer. I mean, he's probably going to win comps there, but yeah, who knows? All I know is for sure is this should have been sorted out in the off season. This speculation just right now just isn't helpful at all. And it's weird as well because he's part of the push to make the top 8, but then he gets out if we don't make the top 8 as well. It's just such a strange. I agree with you guys. It's just such a strange clause to put in. I would love to have been a fly in the room when they're discussing if this was a good idea or not. But yeah, and then also with Richardson as well, reportedly negotiating. Who's how can Richardson negotiate with Stefano if he might not even be here after a 6 month period? Just a messy situation right now.
The thing is, even if there was no clauses in this contract, right now is when you'll be negotiating with him. Right now is when, if he was off contract at the end of 2025, you'd be looking to get that sorted out in the next month or so that it doesn't get anywhere near November and you've got him signed up long term. That's what we need to be doing now. Right now should all be about the extension and the upgrade for next year. That guarantees him that upgrade for next year, no matter where we finish. Whereas other clubs at this point in time, they can't guarantee an upgrade for him for next year, because if we make the top 8, he stays. If he plays State of Origin, he stays. We can right now guarantee him an upgrade for next year. And that's how we should be dealing with it. That's the pressure we should be putting on right now, because I would say that right now he's in the middle of negotiating with our club. I don't know. He should not actually be able to be speaking to other clubs at the moment under the cutoff for the November deadline when you can start negotiating, because he's not off contract next year. So right now, the club needs to put the pressure on that they can upgrade him for the rest of the season, upgrade him for next year. We're the only club that can do that. So that's how the club should be dealing with it right now.
And also with Richardson, like, he went on record and said that, like, he wouldn't pay Payne Haas $1 million. So, like, how does he value, Stefano, who's, like, a good player, but he's not Payne Haas's level? But then you've got the market saying that, someone like Stefano, he could get big money because there's not a lot of, like, good middle props in the open market at the moment. So, how does all this figure in? It's just a really unstabilizing place to be. But just on Gary's point about players, like, other teams, like, I would be shocked if they weren't talking to his manager right now, or someone on behalf of another club, like a third party, is talking to get around it, because it just seems like the NRL do not care about these protocols at all.
I'm sure they are, but we can offer him an upgrade for this season and an upgrade for next season when no other club can guarantee that.
So I can tell you with authority that Barry O'Farrell and the interim board have been communicated to and are communicating with everyone, the hires at the West Tigers, and they are well aware of the urgency of locking down someone like Stefano, and I'd imagine Richardson, and there's a few others in there as well. And so all those talks are going on with the utmost urgency at the moment.
Yeah.
So what that means and what comes of that, I have no clue. But that's what I do.
Going to be important, Steve, because I think it's, as much as I think Gary mentioned Benji, I think what gives me some faith that he could stay is Shane Richardson. This will be one of his first sort of tests, those two together, getting a player that has come through the system, developed, has hit he's got his best years in front of him. Would you, Gary, I know it's a difficult question, we don't know how the ins and outs of our salary cap, but would you pay him up to $1 million a year, or do you think somewhere around 700 is probably a cap for a prop?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be paying him $1 million a year. I don't. We've got big money tied up from next season on elsewhere, but that 850, I think, is definitely the ballpark for him. But we do have to remember the form that he showed this year. He's in his career best form right now. We didn't see that at the end of last year. We didn't see the impact that he's showing now. We've seen about a month of that really high quality football from him, which has been great football, and it's the potential we all thought he had. But it really has only been on display for a month. And going too high on that contract, I worry that you're basing that off a month's worth of football.
All right, boys. Well, I had one more question, but I'm going to answer it myself because we've run out of time. So I had the stench of the previous administration still hangs over this club. So I'm going to buy that for now, and we're going to move on. We're going to talk about...
So is that like when you go out on a date and you buy someone's, like,
wouldn't know, Gary,
order for them? You don't go on dates?
No, not presently, Gary. I was going to, boys, because obviously, I threw it out a couple of hours before that, what topics we should talk about tonight, and you guys were very good at getting back to me with what topics we should talk about. So thank you for that. So we're going to compare just the rosters of the bottom 6 ranked teams at the start of the year, boys, because these are the teams that we are fighting to get out of the cellar with. I'm talking about the Bulldogs, the Dolphins, the Dragons, the Titans, and the Raiders. I know the Raiders are going well, but these are the 6 bottom-ranked teams, and we're going to go through some different positions and just see where we sit on the scale of things, Gary.
Yeah, I do want to comment. Like, you tell us all the time that you're the host. The privilege of being the host is you get to organise the questions. The privilege of not being the host is I don't have to plan out what's on the show. I don't have to come up with the topics. That's your job.
I don't think you were listening, Gary. I just thank you all for your contribution. So I'm not sure what you're talking about there. But let's start with the outside backs, Declan. And I've listed them, these bottom 6 teams. And we might not go through every one of them, but we will come. This is not all a negative one. It's going to start quite negatively, I think, but then it's going to end with a few positives. So let's just wait and see how this pans out. But Declan, from 2 to 5, so the two wingers and the two centres. Obviously, this week we've got, and this is pretty consistent, I think this is our best 2 to 5, we've got Staines, Naden, Olam, and Tupou. So, would you rather them, or would you rather the Bulldogs 2 to 5, which is Carraz, Cherry, Crichton, and Addo-Carr?
I'm going to go with the Bulldogs here.
That's a pretty easy one. Steve,
Yeah.
The Dragons, Zach Lomax, Moses Sully, Jack Bird, and Ravalawa.
Dragons.
Gary, this is probably an interesting one. The Titans. I know they're on a duck egg, but you look at their 2 to 5. Cam Pereira, Speedster, Kelly, Smith Shields, and Jojo Fafita.
I'm probably on the Titans on that one too.
And Declan, the Dolphins. Asako, Avarillo, Tessie New, Jack Bostock.
I'm going to go the Tigers
Really?
on that one.
Really?
Well, I think that Asako is obviously the best. Like, he's really good. He's a really, really good player. But then, like, Olam is better than Avalero. I can't even say that, sorry. And then Bostock's kind of, I would say Tupou is better than Bostock. Like, the Dolphins have signed Tupou, and he's going to start on the wing. So clearly they rate him quite highly as well. And then, like, Tessie New, he, like, obviously if you had, like, Herbie Farnsworth, like, who's injured at the moment, I think that might change my answer. But those 4 names you've given me, I think I would take our centres and wingers.
And Steve, I think a really young, promising back line. Canberra Raiders, Schiller, Tomoko, Sebastian Chris, and Xavier Savage.
Yeah, well, Savage is setting the world on fire at the moment, isn't he? Look, I'd say Canberra there too, and we're still, like, they might be different this week. We're having Naden back, but we're still struggling to start our sets too much with our outside back, so I can't really rate them.
Yeah, I personally had us at the bottom there. I know Declan's sort of thought maybe we're better than the Dolphins, but Farnworth is out injured. But I think that's an area we've got to address. Back row, probably an interesting one. I've included the locks in this, Declan, so I won't give you the Bulldogs again. I'll give you the Dragons. We obviously have Papali, Bateman, and Pole. I think we'd agree they're probably our starting 11, 12, 13 most weeks. The Dragons, Leilua, Jaden Sewer, and Eisenhuth. Are they better than our 3? I think they probably are. Maybe that's prisoner at the moment, but
are we taking into account wages as well, like salaries?
I'll just take into account the next 3 years. Who you got on your books? The next 2 years.
Eddie's got a $20 million salary cap, so it's all right.
Okay. With that in mind, I think I'm going to have to go the Dragons.
Gary, I'll give you the Titans again because I don't watch too many Titans games.
Neither do I. I've watched one all season.
David Fafita, Firma, and Haas. I assume that's not Payne Haas. It's some long lost playing lock for the Titans. So we might have the Titans covered there.
Yeah, I'll take what we've got. Not that I've watched many Titans games, so thanks for...
Steve, the Bulldogs, you got Kickow, Preston, and Curran.
Mate, you could just put Kickow out on the field, forget the other 2, and it still beats our back.
Play too short.
Yeah, just him alone.
Steve, just my point, like you weren't on Sunday night, but do you start to worry a bit about this experienced back row? I think we were all pretty excited when we signed Papali'i, and probably a couple of us were a little bit guarded on Bateman, but are they trending downhill, or is that unfair? No,
it's not unfair. Like, I was really excited about Bateman. I thought his back half the year was terrible last year, and I think what he's put out on the field this year has been really bog average, especially considering he's vice captain and supposed to be leading by example. And he just is making a lot of silly mistakes, I reckon, and playing quite undisciplined. Papali'i, I'm probably the opposite, right? I thought he was pretty average and sort of questioned whether he wanted to be here. He's been a little bit inconsistent this year, but his effort has been there every game. Like, he's absolutely doing so much of the hard work that, the 1%ers they call. So I'm split down the middle, mate. I think Bateman's on his way out. I think Papali'i's worth sticking with.
Declan, one question that I did leave out of buy, sell, and hold, it was around some of the experienced forwards, and we're talking about, obviously, Stefano's the priority, and he's clearly the best forward there at the moment, in form and the best. But would it be behind the scenes time to start maybe looking at potentially moving on Doesn't have to be this year, but maybe next year, one of David Clemmer, Bateman, and Papali'i?
I think Clemmer for sure. I think he was the player that, when asked about it, I said that I was most worried about him going into the season because he had a great start to the year last year. He was really consistent, probably our most consistent forward. But then, he's just kind of, I think after that South game where he got whacked a few times, he just never really bounced back. And, I'm not seeing great signs at the moment from him either. So, especially like with Stefano as well, you want to free up some salary cap. I think that I would be looking to move Clemmer on because I think he's contracted for 2025, but then there's a mutual option after that. So he's guaranteed next year, which is a little bit of a problem to move him on. And you would assume that'd be on good money. With Papali'i, I think that it's a tough one because he does come off contract at the end of 2025. So he's he can talk to clubs as of November 1st this year. If he has another kind of so-so season where it's clear that there's lots of effort but it's not working, then maybe you do have those negotiations. And then with Bateman, I don't know, I just thought that we missed him defensively on the edge.
Maybe people mentioned that.
Yeah, maybe because Seyfarth was there and it was just very apparent, but I just thought that edge, and Galvin was out as well, so like Seyfarth and Sullivan, you could tell that we did miss Galvin and John Bateman. I don't know. And like Bateman, he seems to be like a good trainer. I'm hoping that he can turn it around, but I'm just not sure about Clemmer at this point.
A good trainer, that's not going to do it for me.
Well, that's really important at the back half of your career. Like, you can have natural talent, you can burst onto the scene, but if you don't have the the discipline and like the training ethic, like your talent's going to run out by the time you hit 30. So I'm hoping that he can bounce back from this for those reasons.
Boys, this is where it gets a little bit more, I think. Sorry, Gary, you're going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say with Ice, I think him getting to play outside of Luai next year, I think that could form a really good combination. I think he could get back to some of his best football. So I would like to see how that kind of combination goes next season.
Boys, the fullbacks, this is where it probably gets a little, like, we get into key positions, fullbacks, halves, dummy halves, comparing us to these other 6 bottom-ranked teams. Steve, would you take Jareem Buller over Tyrell Sloan?
Yep.
Declan, would you take Buller over the Hammer? That's a tough one. I don't think I would.
Oh, that is a tough one. But I think speed is great when you can take advantage of it. And I just worry that if the Hammer was playing in our team, there wouldn't be much breaks. I don't think Charlie Staines or Tupou scored a try yet for us, but I'm going to take Jareem Buller, but I'm not confident. I'm very on the fence about it.
Philip Sami, Declan, or Jareem Buller? He's the Titans.
Isn't Brimson? No, Campbell is the Titans fullback, isn't he?
He might be injured this week, to be fair. Would you take Campbell or Buller?
Oh, I would. Campbell's a really good player, but I think I'm going to take Buller.
Gary, Chevy Stewart, which is Canberra debutant, or Jareem Buller?
I'm taking Buller.
And Steve, last one, Connor Tracy, who is being named over Blake Taff as fullback this week, or Jareem Buller?
Buller. I think Buller's on his way to superstardom.
Well, I mean, you say that, Steve. What does superstardom mean? Does that mean he can be a top 5 player in the NRL, or just?
Yeah, I think he can be an influential player in most games that he plays, and I think he can win clutch moments for us.
Yeah.
Again, I think Declan made a good point there. You got to have good players around you.
Yep.
And if he doesn't, he won't get to his potential. But he looks so good. He's smart. He's a smart footballer already.
Fullback is just stacked in the NRL. I won't go through all the teams, but yeah, I just think at the moment, he's on an upward path. But like you said, Campbell, Declan. Campbell's probably, I reckon, the 12th or 13th ranked fullback in the NRL. So I'd say Buller's probably around that, maybe better than a few, but it's a stacked position. Halves, Declan. We've obviously got Lockie Galvin, and let's put in Jerome Luai because he's coming next year. Would you rather that or the Bulldogs, Burton and Hutchinson?
I'd rather us.
Gary, the Dolphins. Would you rather our 2, Galvin and Luai, or Nikorima and Katoa?
I'd rather us.
Steve, Kyle Flanagan and Ben Hunt at the Dragons or ours? I know you love Ben Hunt, so that's not easy.
Yeah, I know that's hard. No, I'd still take us as long as we're going to get this Jerome Luai that Declan and Gary keep talking about.
Titans, Declan, Bribson and Foran. Take ours.
Foran, I think, is on the verge of retirement, so I'm gonna take us.
And then final one, Gary, Strange and Fogarty or Galvin and Luai.
No, I'm taking Galvin and Luai.
And Steve, this is a pretty simple one. The hooker. Last 6, would you rather any of these compared to Appy? Reed Mahoney, Marshall King, Jacob Little, Danny Levi, and I don't even know who the Titans halfback hooker is. Sorry.
No, Appy all the way.
So, Gary, the reason I did that was to say maybe things, even though we've got some glaring deficiencies in the back line and the back row, unfortunately, that's more than half your team. If you include the lock, that's 7 out of 15. But in
which are the important positions?
When you look at the spine, if you think these guys can be 10-year players, obviously Appy's not going to be a 10-year play for us, but if he can be another 3 or 4 years, you'd think we're probably well ahead of some of those teams.
In the spine, the key positions, I think we are. I think there's still question marks over our backs, our outside backs in particular. I think we need to upgrade in those positions. But I think that's much easier to upgrade than it is to upgrade your spine players.
But I think the concern I have is recruitment is just so hard in the NRL right now. I mean, after the Dolphins were brought in, like there's just nothing out there, and anything that is out there is for the next year. So we had to sign Luai, last November for 2025. There's not many like bargain guys. So like we can talk about, we need to replace the back row. We need to get like another proper, like 2 new wingers. But like, where are they coming from? Because there's just not that production line anywhere or players that are available. So that's my major concern with all these, especially if we lose Stefano. I think that, the Bulldogs can't sign any, major props at the moment. So like, what are we going to do? It just looks, it's a bit grim if you think about it from that perspective.
Well, that's my major concern, Declan, is that before we can talk about recruitment, we've got to talk about retaining players, and I still go back to, I know I've harped on it, we let go 2 good, solid first-grade football front forwards last year. We are not stronger in the forwards this year because of that. We cannot lose Stefano. We just cannot do it. We have to do, I agree with what you guys said earlier about $1 million is too much. But, if the Panthers are going to pay him $850 plus the likelihood of playing semi-finals football for the next 4 years, then we have to pay $950 with the chance that we make the 8 at some stage, right? And if we've got to do that because we've got here in the next few years potentially an outstanding spine, one of the best spines in the competition. But that spine is going to be rendered useless if it doesn't have a forward pack that drives the team forward and outside backs to run off these blokes, right? And we cannot keep just going around in circles by losing a player and then replacing him with a player of similar quality. We've got to keep that player and then build in a very prudent fashion where we really need to build. Because as you say, Declan, it's just the abundance is just not there.
Yeah, and that's exactly like what the team was like when Tedesco and Moses and Brooks were all playing. Like they were good players, but then we had guys like Joel Edwards that Avasia Mangafangai, not like obviously guys who played first grade, so talented players, but not guys like the Roosters and those kind of forward packs. So yeah, I agree. We just have to surround these guys with a really well balanced squad. Otherwise, that either we're not going to be successful, or then the spine players are going to leave because they want success elsewhere.
But that's why that get out clause for Stefano is so bad. The fact that you have to replace players 12 months before they're gone. And we've got a situation where we can, if we're in the hunt for the semi-finals right up until the last week, we could be waiting till September to have a player walk out on us. That's why that clause is so bad, because it puts you in a situation where you can't replace him for next year because you need to replace him for next year, last year. And that's why that clause is so bad. And that's why it has potential to put us a couple of steps backwards again, because it's just a dumb clause that could really come back and bite us.
Boys, there's a game on this week. Let's preview it. We play the Panthers in Bathurst. Gary's going to be there on the hill. I'll be looking out for him on the TV, see if I can see him. Let's hope
I
he's
don't stand out.
up and about. Got a decent record against the Panthers the last few years. Obviously sprung that upset last year. I remember there was an upset at Leichhardt. No Nathan Cleary, which is a positive. But let's talk about our changes. Declan, I thought Benji named I don't know if it's the strongest 17 all year, but the best 17 we have available. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that he's brought Naden in at the right time. I think that right edge needs something different. We haven't really had much success going down there. Getting Samuel Fainu and John Bateman back, I think that's really good. I think Fainu did a lot of really important, like 1%er dirty work in each 20 minutes of halftime, which I think is really important because so much can go wrong during that period. I think we really missed him. And I really like that Latu Fainu is getting that 14 jersey because I think that he's a really good defender. If he was to play hooker for Appy to go off, I think that he would do a better job defensively than Sullivan. Sullivan can go to reserve grade, get a little bit more confidence. And then if he's called upon again this season, hopefully he plays a little bit better. And obviously Galvin, the big one, the star of like the first few rounds for us. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it's probably the strongest team we could have named this year so far.
I reckon it's the strongest team, bar one. I think the other Fainu, what's his name? Sione, isn't it? Sione Fainu. Yep. He's playing reserve grade this week, I think.
He's on the extended bench as well.
He's on the extended bench, but he, in saying that, he has been named in the second grade side, yeah. So I would have him in, and I'd have him in ahead of Seafarth, and I'm probably still in Gary's thunder because he said this a million times, but we all have Twal and Seafarth together. I don't think they offer enough.
That's harsh. I think that's harsh, Gary. I know you're on a Seafarth crusade this year, but impact off the bench, he has had impact. He scored tries. I think the 3 games he's played off the bench, he's been good in every single one of them. He's been poor starting in both of them. So you're just going to flick him, are you, Gary?
Well, it was Steve that said it, but I'll argue it for him because I know you and I have been arguing about it all week. The issue I have, as Steve rightly put, is having both Seafarth and Twal on the bench together. For me, the output from
why not flick Twal? Or we don't have enough props then, you reckon?
Well, Seafarth is better playing in the prop rotation anyway.
But Twal doesn't make a mistake, doesn't miss a tackle. Like he's
a try, we know that.
But for me, I would keep Twal. To be honest, I was really surprised at the end of last season when we re-signed both of them.
What do we sign 12 till the end of 2040 or something crazy?
Yeah, I think he stays here for the rest of his life pretty much. But I wouldn't have signed both of them to contracts because for me, we need to improve the impact in our middle forwards, and they both don't provide much impact. That's the issue I have with having Seafarth on the bench this weekend. It's not that he was poor performing off the bench. He played at a really hot, like a decent level. But it's just too much of the same between him and Twal, and I want a little bit more impact, and I think Sione can bring that.
Just to play devil's advocate to Gary's take, so the Penrith Panthers, the Premiers last 3 years in a row, first team to three-peat in the modern era. So they've named on their bench Dane Laurie, Lindsay Smith, Liam Henry, and Luke Garner. So not a lot of size coming off that bench, probably more workhorses. So maybe, in the modern era these days, maybe it's good to have, some guys who are really fit, who can defend in the middle when the ruck speed is very, very quick, which is why guys like Twal and Seafarth together might actually be ideal in this situation, because Penrith, that's kind of what they've done. They've went for a fit bench as opposed to a big bench.
Do they struggle to score points?
Well, no, but they're still named workhorses because. Yeah,
but the problem is we need some impact to create space between us and the defensive line. Our block plays aren't working, so basically we go too far across field because we can't get that space and we can't hold up the defensive line from sliding. So what would benefit our team a lot is either having a ball playing lock who can hold up the defensive line by being an option of either running the ball or passing, or having some high impact through the forwards. We don't have that, and I think Sione can provide more impact than Seyfarth and Twal can. And Sione may come in and you put him in there and he doesn't have a lot of experience. He spent a lot of time in reserve grade, so he may come up and it may not work. But I'd like to see that option given, and I think, in my opinion, Sione outplayed Seyfarth, especially in the trials.
See, I want to talk about the other side of the football too, as far as Seyfarth's concerned. Sorry, Eddie, we're really going to town here. But like, if we're going to have any chance of winning this game on the weekend, we have to control the ruck. We absolutely have to control the ruck speed, because Penrith in attack, they reset so quickly, and they will throw 4 different plays at you in a set of 6, right? They don't take 3 setups before they put on a play. They'll go right, put on a play. They'll go left, put on a play, come back, put on a play. They do it every set of 6. So we need to control the ruck and slow it down. And the one way we're not going to do that is if we're bounced off first contact. Right? If we're bounced off first contact, they get the advantage in the ruck. They get quick play the ball, and they'll get to do those back side-to-side plays that they do so well. So my concern with Seyfarth is he gets bounced off first contact way, way too often. Now, I don't know whether Sione is any better, to be honest. Haven't seen enough of him, but that worries me.
All right, boys, it's time for a prediction.
So is our whole review of the game just talking about Alex Seyfarth?
Oh, the pitchforks were out for him there. So I think we were talking about. We did talk a little bit about Nathan. Obviously,
critical analysis, Eddie.
I think this will be Declan. I'm not going to predict the win, but I think this will be a lot closer because it suits us. I think we play Penrith fairly well. I'm always more worried to getting blown out by a Roosters or a big, strong team like Canberra. So I think I'm going to go Penrith 24-16 and them only, sneaking away with a late try to make it that 8-point margin.
Yeah, I think Penrith, they're happy to beat you by 4 as opposed to blowing you out. So that kind of process team where they'll kick to the corner and kind of choke you to death. So I agree with you. I'm not sure that will. I think a team like us, and we do try to defend. I think it could be a little bit of a low point scoring game, but I think they've just got too much quality. So I think they're going to probably win pretty comfortably.
Any more optimism, Gary or Steve? Can we get closer than 8 that I suggested, Steve?
I got 24-4. I think they're just going to march downfield.
24-4 with a Seyfarth try, consolation try too.
Alex 12.
Gary?
Penrith should win this game every day of the week, and there's no reason for this, but for some reason this week I have one of your feelings, Eddie. I think I've got a feeling we may get away with a win this week. Penrith is the much better team, but I think the missing Nathan Cleary closes that gap a little bit, and I think the addition of the players we've got coming back and the embarrassment, some of Benji Marshall's words in his press conference after the game, I'm hopeful that the team's going to respond to that. I really like the comment when he was talking about Campbelltown Stadium, the sellout crowd, and that it's the players' responsibility to get the crowd into the game. I like those sort of comments, and I'm hoping that the team's going to respond to that. So I think we're going to get away with a win in a tight one, but I have absolutely no real evidence for that.
And Gary, you'll be there, so you'll be able to give the halftime speech for Benji and give us some pointing tips after. So, surely victory is assured if you get into the changing room.
Seriously, if Benji was smart, he'd get me in there, and that's what we'd do.
I don't know if they've got any change rooms in Bathurst, but
I'll just yell that out to them in the park out the back.
Time for the quiz, boys. Although I was going to mention the Penrith danger man. The 3 minutes that Dane Laurie gets, we've got to make sure we shut him down as well. So that'll be important.
Well, as soon as you said he was on the bench, that kind of brightened my day a little bit.
Question 1, buzz in if you know the answer. Which of these West Tigers players never scored a double at Panthers Stadium? It's multiple choice. Is it Andrew Fifita, Gareth Ellis, Tim Moulton, or Nofaluma? Declan? Who never scored a double?
Nofaluma.
Steve?
It's all of them.
No, see, Gary, he's a step ahead of you. He's not going to do that again. He did that last week.
I can't even remember the options. I'll take C.
Okay. Gary, you want to go?
Yeah, I'll take Fafita.
Okay, Gary was right. Fafita did score a double, but it was at Campbelltown in 2010. Who of these four players, who all played for Penrith and the West Tigers, played the most games for the West Tigers? Another multiple choice. I'll start with you, Gary. Was it Kevin Nagama, Elijah Taylor, Shane Elford, or Paul Fadawira? Who played the most?
It was the most games?
Yeah.
And was Elijah Taylor one of the options? That's who I'm taking.
Declan?
No, I reckon Kevin Oguama was here for a sneaky amount of time, so I'm going
I've
to
got
lock
about him
him
being
in.
an option.
Can't change now, Steve. Steve doesn't even remember the question, so we won't worry about Steve. Kevin Nagama, you're right, Declan. He spent a very sneaky amount of time. I would have guessed he played maybe 60 games for us. He played 90. Elijah Taylor, 80. Elford, 59. Fadawira, 58. Tim Sheens played for Penrith between 1970 and 82. So, Steve, you would have seen all those games.
Yep.
How many appearances did he make for Penrith?
You're asking me. There's no ABCD.
No, there's not. You've just got to guess it outright. How many appearances? He played for 12 years for Penrith. I didn't know that. So, it's a fair amount of footy.
93.
Gary?
It was 179.
Declan?
100. I'm going to say 201.
166. So Gary was nearest to the pin there. Question 4. Which are the two other out-of-Sydney venues, not including Bathurst, you can buzz in for this one, that we have played the Panthers at?
Declan.
Yep.
So we played them at Suncorp,
Magic Round.
Magic Round at 2018. And then we played them at Parramatta Stadium.
Out of Sydney
And
venue.
then,
Out of Sydney.
oh, fuck.
We played them at Rockhampton.
Yeah, we played them
Oh, yeah, we did, yeah.
close to the mark. I thought it was Rockhampton, but I'm sure
Was
you're
Cairns?
right. He's got Redcliffe, the great Moreton Daly Stadium. Last question. Who was the only player that debuted against the joint venture? I assume that means us. In our club's first ever win, and also later played for the West Tigers. Another clue, he debuted for Auckland Warriors in round 2 of 2000. West
They're all
Tigers.
old people
Carlo.
questions.
John Carlo.
Not John Carlo. He played for Penrith as well as West Tigers. He won a premiership for both clubs, which is remarkable, really.
Fadawira.
Or Fadawira. Premiership at Penrith 2003, premiership at West Tigers 2005. Fats, he was one of the great low-key signings. All right, boys, it's been a long podcast tonight, but very, very entertaining. So, Gary, good luck in Bathurst. Are you driving the bus, or is Joel driving the bus, or do you no idea who's?
Joel's driving the bus, but I hope someone's checked his license because I'm sure he has one.
I'm sure it's all above board. All right. Enjoy the trip. Thank you, boys.
There's that permission note again, Steve.
Who's lucky enough to sit next to you all the way to Bathurst, Gary?
That's Yachty. We've already organised that.
It's the prize from the quiz.
The prize. All right, boys. I'll see you probably Sunday night for a review. Thank you.
Thanks,
you.
boys.
See you guys.